very warm welcome to the stage. Our panel this evening, Phil Magee, Cian Boylan, and Rocky O'Reilly. Yes! Guys, I thought we'd ease into things because tonight is about Meet the Producers. I was going to say Meet the Parents there for a second, and it was going to be a Jeremy Kyle
How are you there?
DNA test. Phil, I'll start this one, an easy one for you. What is your favourite, or in your opinion, the best produced record of all time? Just a little nice, easy one to ease
Thanks,
us
Paddy.
in.
Yeah,
there you go, Phil. Not a bother.
My favourite album, my favourite produced album. I don't know, like, I think as a music producer, or even as a musician, I don't think you pick one album as your quintessential, I love it, you know, you're only reproducing that or trying to match that for the rest of your career. So I think it's to do with moments in time when you're younger. When I was younger, I loved Red Hot Chili Peppers, and Blood Sugar Sex Magic was like an amazing album. And then I went off for years and I loved it again, and Johnny Cash. So, I don't know, it goes flips around. I actually think Tin Lizzy, their debut album, was actually one of my favourite albums for lyrics, but I don't know, I'm dodging bullets here. Love them all.
Because sometimes when you hear an album and then you go back to it, it can be disappointing. You remember it as a lot better, or it just doesn't age very well.
Well, most albums age instantly, you know, because they're a moment in time. So it kind of captures memories. So you don't mind if it's aged badly. You love that in a sense.
Okay.
Some albums can sound timeless, which is great. But then some albums should sound like the time they were recorded in.
Okay.
Because that brings you straight back to that little world.
Rocky, same question to you.
Again, it's impossible to pick one. I think I probably have a top 5 that floats around and changes in different genres, but I can name you names if you want.
All right, no, I do definitely. Top 5 is
There's
good.
a rap album. These are probably all very unsuccessful and not the best albums of all time, but they're my favourites. A group called Ugly Duckling from California who released a concept album about a fast food chain called Meat Shake. 16 tracks, just seamlessly intertwined, funny, smart, intelligent, all, you know. They found all the music on vinyl and they've sampled everything. It sounds incredible. That's one that stuck with me for about 15 years. And maybe then I would just jump back into albums that I was super into, you know, when I was younger and getting into music, like Bleed American by Jimmy Eat World, which I kind of love the story behind that album as well. Dropped by a major label, self-funded the album, made it with a friend, and still, you know, to this day, it sounds phenomenal as a modern rock record. Yeah. So there's 2 good ones.
There's 2 of your top 5. We're going to get to the 3 before the end. And Cian.
I also can't really answer that question, but you know, I suppose I'd admire certain producers like George Martin can do nothing wrong. Some of those productions are just incredible, and you know, Quincy, obvious ones. You know, Thrill just still amazes me. You know, but you know, and then you know, someone Rick Rubin or something does a great job with the Johnny Cash thing. That's just, but you know, a fantastic thing. You know, totally different things. But you know, I definitely would have a tough time picking one album. But there's definitely a couple of producers that I'd
feel like I'm interviewing politicians and not producers, but that's all right. I did ask that. I said to the lads, I give them 2 questions to start off that, because it's maybe just to be fair. Normally I don't tell anybody what we're asking, but I did say I'd ask them their favourite or best produced record, and also the one that's most overrated. A classic album that really, when you listen back or you think, no, it's actually a bit shit. But not like you've seen there, obviously, I don't want to ask a succession of questions they can't answer. And they all said, I don't have an answer. But by the end, we're going to get you into a position that you're going to answer that question. But for now, I want to move on because I want to talk about your own careers to date. And by way of introduction to some of the stuff that you've done, and by way of introduction to the audience here, could you tell me about some of your proudest moments in music to date? And I'll start again. Cian, start at the other end.
please don't start with me.
That's the album, is it?
That's the album. I suppose some of my proudest moments might be actually a performance, a live kind of performance, because I do a lot of that as well as, the producing thing. Without sounding like a politician again, which I'm going to sound like a politician again, usually I am, you're pretty much proud at the end of most recordings you make, because you try to put everything into it. And but there's been, I suppose, a couple of kind of highlights. I did a thing for Gregory Porter recently, and I, just big fan, background being as a jazzer, and that came out really nice. And I was, that's something I can remember.
Did you record his vocal?
I didn't record his vocal. No, I got his vocal sent to me, and his trio sent to me, and then we put a load of production on it to make it into a hit. That was the idea.
That must be a thrill to receive, though. That if you're looking for ingredients for cakes, like the finest ingredients, because his vocal is it's incredible.
Yeah, it's absolute chocolate.
Yeah,
and the whole thing, it was recorded beautifully. It was just a piano trio and his vocal. I mean, I'd say you could put an iPhone and record his vocal and it would still sound amazing, But no, it was a beautiful recording. And
what was that?
It was
track,
something that
Cian, can I ask you?
It was called In Fashion.
Okay.
I think it's only just coming out actually. But it was a quick job. It wasn't a big long process, but it's just one that kind of stands out in the last month or two.
Okay.
And I can't think further back than 2 months.
Rocky, what about yourself?
I think it's probably hard to look past some of the So I Watch You From Afar stuff that I've been involved with. First, second albums especially. I think just watching a group of friends from the north coast of Ireland just kind of spread out into the world with as an instrumental rock band was quite interesting. There was just an energy and an excitement in it. They were just drive and ambition, searching for something, kind of pushing sonic boundaries, and in terms of in terms of being an instrumental band as well, really connecting with people, which is, I think, the thing that sometimes struggles with for me in the post-rock world. So they came at it in a different way. And watching just the spread of that, I've kind of been out and about with them across most of the world at this point.
When we were talking about post-rock and So I Watch You From Afar, like, so much time is dedicated in, I would say, 99% of records to the vocal. So how is that like an amazing emancipation to kind of go, we don't have to worry about the lead singer, he doesn't exist, and you got a lot more space to put stuff into.
You don't have that focus, you don't have that central point in the record with that is the attention grabber. I was kind of mixing a record today, and I was spending the whole time just saying, it's the vocal, this is getting in the way of the vocal. So when that's not there, it's just a different sort of approach. Rhythm becomes super important, at just every part. Essentially your two guitarists in that band are both the vocalist, and you're looking different ways. I think it's interesting and exciting to open it up, but I think that's why, especially on those first two albums, Gangs, the second one especially, how they connected with people, that was the interesting, exciting thing for it. And since then, I've done lots of other instrumental albums, but I'm trying to be like super choosy about it, because generally I think once vocal disappears,
because then effectively you became the go-to, instrumentalist producer because of that work.
Very much so. Where you're fielding calls from all over Europe and into Russia, because there's a trail that band have left behind them, of influence and motivation. So I think you just have to be very careful, from my point of view, in terms of which acts you want to work with, because if a band's coming to you or an artist is coming to you and they're just super fans of something that you've done before, or you have to make sure that you can actually bring something unique to them, and that it's not just a rehash of something that they enjoyed.
Then it's just homage or pastiche.
Yeah, I think I'd be selling them short if I was just doing that. If I was just kind of pressing the button every day and just feeling
I've got the settings here ready to go.
Yeah. That's not really that's not the thing that kind of motivates me, because the thing that was so interesting about those albums were that they didn't really sound like anything before them.
And Philip?
Question, what was the proudest moments?
Yeah, your proudest. It's an opportunity to boast.
I think it's from seeing bands from their infancy, from their kind of raw state of starting their musical journey, and kind of going along with them and seeing them kind of blossom and grow. So I've been lucky enough to work with a few bands from the very scratch and kind of see how it kind of develops and comes along. So like Codeline would be something I've been working with them 13 years now, which is shocking to work out how long they've been.
Is that from the 21 Demands days?
21 Demands, yeah, the days we don't talk about. But even then, they were stunning songwriters. Like the songs from that band were just, I heard them like, that's amazing. So every week we just recorded. We did 6 songs, I think, a month for like 2 years before they got signed. And it was just great to see that, So I think that'd be pretty up there. Same with the script. the first time I heard the single, it was just like, wow, you know, let's record this.
What single was that?
We Cry.
Okay.
It was just insane. You know, you're just like, never heard this in Ireland. Let's record it now, you know, and get it out. And that's it. That's great.
And when you like listen to Rocky there, like, and you know, with those bands, the vocal is key.
Yeah.
The lyric
it's
is
the anchor.
key.
Yeah.
You know, like, do you kind of think, gee, have you done any instrumental stuff?
A wee bit. I've been mixing Overhead the Albatross.
Oh, brilliant! Yeah.
And I'm doing a wee bit of recording with them, but it's a world I'm not. You know, I haven't indulged in it enough to understand the deep understanding of it. You know, sonically of it. So it's something kind of new to me, and I love it because it's normally when you're mixing, it's about getting that vocal, or even recording, it's getting that sentiment, the emotion, everything about the song is from the vocal. Really, the rest is kind of backing up the song. The progressions are to set the mood. You know, if it's the minor, major chords, if it's sad, if it's happy, it's all about the vocal. So when you've no vocal there, I was just completely lost when I was mixing. I was like, what do I do? Where am I going to go? But you know,
you can do anything you want. It doesn't
matter.
That's
the
what
problem.
you do.
The rules are completely gone out the window. You're like, all right, I'll just turn up this sound really loud and see where it goes. But yeah, so it's just a whole new way of looking, you know. But yeah, no, vocals be quite important to me. That's the first thing I kind of resonate to.
The first thing I would do if I was recording an album without vocal, would be more cowbell. That'd be my first point. It's an open goal for that opportunity. Okay, so obviously, room full of people that are interested in your process. I think, you know, and I'm interested to hear more about where's home, because there's so many different record producers. Like, there's a certain place they like to do their thing, and that could be a studio, it could be their own studio, it could be the home studio, but then it could be like a commercial studio that they favour above all others. I am going to start with you, Cian, again, because I know that you've got a new venture, and I think that's interesting. Yourself and Bressie have set up Camden Recording Studio, which is your home now, basically, for all you're doing.
That's where I pretty much do everything now, yeah.
So you built that?
No, if anyone wants to book me for any
Yeah, no, I thought it was a good opportunity for a shameless plug. Did you build that studio, or did you design that studio? Like, how did it come to be?
Yeah, we redesigned it, both really. It was Pulse Recording Studios. Pulse obviously went on and are now in Wimble, but it's been an existing studio for about 25 years, I think. So in terms of kind of structure of the live rooms and control room, a lot of the hard work was done, and it was done by very good acoustic guys over in England a long time ago. But the place it had fallen into disrepair. It needed a lot of love. So we kind of took it over really probably about 2.5 years ago. And then we've been kind of gradually doing a big refurb and building a couple of other studio spaces in it. So it's all, we officially launched about 2 months ago, and it's all ready and looking lovely and sounding great. We did a lot of work on the control room in the main studio and live room just acoustically. It's good. It's all about the vibe. It's a good vibe.
What makes a good vibe, if you don't? Because I'm going to ask the same question of the boys of Rocky, because Rocky's got Start Together Studios. We come to your space in a second. What makes that a good place to make music?
Well, I suppose for certain people, it can be a different thing. You know, the people is a big thing. I suppose that people don't necessarily feel like they're in a cavern for the entire time. A little bit of natural light can be good, and just a bit of, it's not dirty, and things like that. Something like some people might just run a mile if the place isn't it just isn't in good shape. But I think for us, I had the kind of aesthetic that it should be like drinking in your favorite bar, or going to a restaurant or a nightclub or something like that. That people are just straight away feel comfortable and feel like it's a place they kind of want to hang out. Because sometimes people might be booked in for 4 or 5 weeks.
Is it residential?
It is. No, it's almost residential. in that there's like a shower in the kitchen. There's
lovely
just no
couch.
bed.
It's
Yeah,
a
there's
Dublin
couch.
residential. You can, you can sleep in the porch if you like,
But it's
and
on
pay
Camden
500
Street.
euros rent.
Yeah, there's the hotels everywhere.
Yeah, there is, and Coppers is nearby.
Yeah,
as
Coppers
well.
is, yeah.
Even better. When you say it's like a pub, you've got like Optrex and taps and stuff like that.
We have a bar going in actually.
Okay, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
we had one there for the launch and for about a week or two afterwards, and we still got many cases of wine left, so we could pretty much turn it into a bar at any point. But we are actually building a bar. We
Okay.
believe. So there you go.
That sounds like a disastrous idea,
I
I
know.
have to say.
I know.
Okay.
But we don't hire anybody who drinks.
Just the musicians. Okay. Rocky, Start Together Studios. What makes that a special place to make music?
Similarly, it was a studio a long time ago. There was a thing called Outlet in Belfast, who were a label and distribution centre. So it's in a 3-story music centre called the OES Centre. And there was the shell of a studio. I was in a band and we needed to make our second album. There were no studios in Northern Ireland that would rent out to producers for long periods. So we just took the shell and moved in with a computer and a couple of microphones. And from there, I've just grown the collection, fixed up the space, made it more functional in ways that I think will be useful to musicians. So for me, it's about having everything you may ever need to make the album. So I can, at this stage, I bring a lot of bands from outside the country, so I'm picking them up at the airport, and we, drive in my car for 20 minutes, and then everything's there. So I've got maybe like 25, 30 guitar amps, 10 drum kits, tons of synths, pedals, tape echoes, plate reverbs, pianos, just anything that is, like sonically interesting, and it kind of looks a bit like a wonderland for musicians then. So as soon as they walk in, they're hit with all these, like 1950 valve synth, whatever it is, and it just puts them in the right frame of mind. And then I think other than that, it's just funny lights, just like just I've probably spent more money on lights this year than I have on anything else, but it's just about kind of setting. For me, it was about the sonic possibilities of the building were the most interesting thing. There's a great live room and control room. There's a more echoey wood room, which we call the wood room because everything in there is wooden. That's good as almost like an echo chamber. There's a 3-story stairwell. There's lots of other concrete spaces. So with a lot of the albums that still I make, but especially in the early days, it was about capturing the air moving in those spaces. So setting a band up in the room and capturing that thing, because that's one of my favorite things about albums, is that it's a time and a place, and you've caught that. So when you walk into the room, you can feel it. So everything else is just about making the process easier. It's become my base, I think, probably, because of that, and also budgets. If I wanted everything that was in my space in a room, I think maybe, say in London, you're talking, like more than £1,000
So
per
if
day.
international bands get in touch with you, do you tell them, you're coming to Belfast?
Well,
and you're
I'm happy to go to them. It just makes more sense to come to me because everything's there that they need. Belfast is a cheap city.
Yeah.
There's a really good community around music there, at least. And I think bands sometimes, as a getaway feeling, that can really work in my favour. It's like a trip it's like a holiday mixed in with a recording scenario. They're not around their usual group of friends, so it puts them in the right headspace.
Of course.
One thing I do like to do usually is to go to the band before that happens. So if the band is from wherever, if it's like from an hour down the road, or if it's mainland Europe, I'll try to go there and do the pre-production rehearsals with them in their space to try and get a concept of what drives them. There was one band I worked with from Bermondsey in London, and they rehearsed under this train track in this leaking, horrible, just shithole. It was just the worst, saddest place I've ever been. Their music was super angry. They had their backs up all the time, and spending 3-4 days with them in that space, I totally got where they were coming from. So they weren't coming fresh to me into my environment without me having a greater understanding of where they were coming from. So if I can't get to see a band on tour before we work together, I'd definitely like to do that.
Philip, where do you make sweet music?
Oh, everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm based in the Mill in Swords.
Yep.
And that's kind of my home. Like Rocky, like all my gadgets are there, all my synths and guitars and stuff. So it's really nice for a band to come to. But then it's lovely to go away as well. Just change it up, go residential somewhere. It's good to move around, but it's also good to have a home as well in the recording world. So it's really important. Like even Camden, I've done maybe 6 singles there this year. and it's just great to go there and not be in your own studio for a while. And Rocky's place sounds like a theme park, so I want to get up there.
I've got 2 studios, so when I get bored, I can just go across town to the other place. So it keeps my brain
very fancy.
Happy.
So it's great to be moving around. And before things got busier, I was kind of doing more guerrilla recording. So I used to have a van with like a full Pro Tools rig in the back of it and hire out NAMA houses, or summer houses as they used to be called, and kind of go somewhere, go up to your homeland or somewhere, go up out west.
Narnia. Oh, well.
Go west and just hire a house for 2 weeks with a band, you know, because you got instant catering and accommodation built into it. And that was brilliant as well. And sometimes I go back to do that because it was just fun. So you like to mix it up. Whatever the band needs and the songs deserve, whatever way you think is going to be the best way to capture them. Because you just don't want them to come to you or you go to them if it's not right. It needs to be really the right environment without being hippy-dippy about it. It just needs to have the right sonic traits. Like the studio I have wouldn't have a huge live room, which is fine for nowadays. But if I'm doing something a bit Fleet Foxy and acoustic, I'm going to go to somewhere that has big stone walls and nice hardwood floors somewhere. You know, you're gonna move where the music wants to go as well. And then you might go back to the other place and do other overdubs. So.
Just so that I know, like, these guys have so much they can tell us about, like, making music, and I think we're just scratching the surface. Just out of us, like, so we get to know what everybody does. If you're a producer or you make music, you're more in the production side of things, and you're here to hear about production, would you please put your hand up? Is that fair enough? So, yeah, okay, but and if you're more performance or you're managing performers or something like that side of the business, would you put your hands up? Jeez, about 50-50, yeah. Oh, the rest of you, what are you doing? Just wandering up to, okay. Okay, so it is about 50. So I suppose, like, you guys have dealt with a lot. You deal with queries on a daily basis. So my question about bands and artists, how weird is it? Like, how weird are they? Like, it's the requests they give you.
Musicians weird?
Yeah, no, because they do. I imagine they would start with like some mad requests or strange ambitions. You know, it's the classic John Lennon wanted. Yeah, I want the sound to be purple, like, you know, and it's like, how the fuck do you do that? Even if you're as good as George Martin, I'm throwing that out to the floor, like, and you can either agree or disagree that musicians are inherently weird.
I must also be weird. I think they're all right. I think communication is just such a big part of it. It's about language and terminology and understanding those ideas so that they don't seem as bizarre. Maybe I think that's probably what most of what I do certainly is. It's translating those concepts into an actual thing.
Do they ask for strange stuff, or is it very straightforward mostly?
No.
I don't find it that straight. Well, I don't know. Maybe I'm just lucky, or I'm not listening.
I think sometimes the issue is just that they can't communicate musically, you know, in terms of using musical terms or anything like that, because they may not have that background.
Yeah, of course.
And they might try to explain what they mean, but it can be through emotion or through very kind of abstract. Yeah, the likes of a little bit more purple or a little bit, that has happened, you know, that kind of thing. And it's kind of your job just to really listen and try to understand what it is that they're trying to say or what they're feeling. It can be it can be a very tricky thing sometimes.
When you're picking out rhythms and stuff, like, people have a different way to, like, communicate, like drum beat, drum sounds, you know, like making strange guttural noises with, like, and it's often that can be hard to interpret. I would imagine, having been on the other side, really, I don't know a lot about being a producer.
I'd say it's mainly easy and lovely working with musicians. I know I'm not playing to the crowd, but
yeah, you are.
you know, it really is. Like, they know what they're doing. You've kind of, as Rocky does as well, like, he does a fair amount of pre-production. I'd be the same. So when someone contacts you, you listen to their music first, you know, and you kind of have a bond with that, and then you go meet them. I always love to go into the Lion's Den. I always rather meet a band in their environment, their world, you know, so they're not all coming into scary studio and sharing music with stranger for the first time. I'd rather go into their world and kind of let them be the kings of their kind of den. And then you kind of size them up pretty quick. It's always just a bunch of people trying to make music, because obviously you've gone there because you've liked the demos already, so you know it's not mad, you know it's not something that's not for you, so you're going in there, and they're always great. It's, you know, and as you say, there's different members of a band might have the same expertise as other members in the band. Like, I know a band where the singer, he just can't emulate rhythms. Like, you can't, like, if he talks about a drum beat, it's always the same one. He always kind of goes, do a bit of booba gaga, and the drummer's like, booba gaga, but it's in 3/4. Like, what do you, like, you know, he just wants more energy, but that's how he, but the drummer knows that's what he means. Okay, you know, and he does it, you know, that kind of way. But no, but musicians they're good. They're good people.
And like, in terms of like demos, because you did mention demos there, like, I think practically a lot of musicians wonder about like what they need to be sending you, either to just pique your interest or as something that can be a valuable template for you to start working off. I mean, what sort of price should you be? What price? Not even say price. What should you be? What do you want to receive? What's the best case scenario for you?
Well, I mean, I think if it's a well-recorded guitar and vocal, and I don't even mean really professionally recorded. If, you know, if it's just a demo with guitar or piano or whatever it is, you know, one instrument, as long as you can hear the song and you can hear the quality of the voice, you know, it's really about the song and the voice, obviously, if it's going to be a singer-songwriter sending it in. But once you can hear the song, that's all you really need. You know, you don't need them to be sending a full demo that they want you to turn into a production sometimes, depending on the type of music, you know. If it's you know, something looking for radio, pop rock genre, they've spent 6 months at this song, and you know, in that case you might want to hear their fully formed demo that they've done on Logic, because you can see all the ideas are there and maybe just the recording quality isn't there, and you know what your job is going to be, you know. But it totally varies. You know, you don't need it to spend lots of money before sending in a demo to get it produced, I don't think.
Yeah, like, it's, for me, it's like a two-way street. Recently a band sent me a demo and I hated it. I couldn't hear the song. The demo was so bad. Like, the rest of the demos were good, but this demo was so bad because it was just over-egged. There was lots of stuff going on, so I couldn't hear the song at all. I was like, I don't know what's going on. So I just sent me an acoustic and a vocal, and they sent it back to me, and it's my favourite song now in that EP. But then on the flip side, some bands will do demos and I go, oh my goodness, why do you need me? That's mighty, you know, that kind of way. Let's go from there. And there's a case in point. There's a wee chap over there, Adam, in a band called Cities, and he sent me a demo from his band, and the demo was so good. I was like, can we use your files and just expand on that? You know, let's bring in your world and let's just bring it together. Let's collaborate on it, because you've captured it. You know, the vibe is there, the tune is there. Let's troop on. But then sometimes it's terrible with other bands, you know. But in this case, it was good.
And like, so he was recording on a project that you could actually import.
Yeah, sorry for talking about you, Adam.
Pro
over there.
Tools.
The man in the yellow shirt, stand up there. No, Adam was using Logic, Ableton, you know. And then you just brought in all the audio files, and then from there we expanded on it, use different sounds, use different synths, redo vocals, maybe look at structures, look at rhythm sections, but use the essence, the guts, and probably a good 70% of those files for that project. And then for other bands, they might bring demos in and you go, God, I love that really bad recorded guitar. It's something so vibey, like you use like the microphone on your iMac and there's traffic and you're like, oh, it's just great. And in the studio you might have done it clean and you just lost all vibe and you're like, oh, what happened there? And it's demo-itis, but sometimes you follow your ears and go, well, it's good, just use it, you know, it's nothing to do with me, it's the song. You have to serve the song no matter what, you know, and it's just sound. It doesn't matter what it was recorded on or where it was recorded. Once it's cool, take it. Yeah.
Rocky, I saw you nodding there. You're in agreement with a
Absolutely.
very badly recorded guitar.
Well, I'm just
badly
thinking about, you know, I
guitars.
think as soon as that starts happening for me, and it is demo-itis, you know, if someone's recorded something, maybe they've become used to it and it's crap, or maybe they've become used to it because it's the thing that's right at the center of it, so just use it. I very rarely would spend time trying to recreate things that feel good. If it feels good, you've already got it. You know, like in that situation that you guys are talking about, where they maybe think they've been demoing, but they actually haven't been. They've been producing, and it's there. And it just, you know, musicians maybe sometimes just need help, and that collaboration's the right word. You know, you're just joining that party for a little time to help with the things that they can't quite nail. And that's the useful purpose of a demo, but it needn't always be that far. I think the dangerous version of that is where you've been making the demo for 8 years and you're nearly finished the mix to be able to send it to the guy, and I'll send it this week. Oh, my laptop's crashed. Oh, that was 20 years ago. I'm still working on my debut album. That's the danger of the demo process, I think, and that's a big thing, I think, in terms of I assume you guys are the same. It's like
absolutely.
you know when things are finished and you know when it's
Overcooked.
time to move on.
Yeah.
I think that's probably one of the most important things I bring to projects. Is that.
Good clarity.
Is the project finished when the money runs out, or is it?
No, God, never.
The money
really
hasn't
have to
started.
Yeah. Is there money? For me, it's about, and that gets into the. It's what does the project need, and is that possible? And then, of course, it's always more. I think. I can't think of a project that's finished early or on budget, in terms of, and I'm always willing to be the one that gets hit a little bit for that, because usually I'm the one that's the one that I'm not holding things up, but I'm exploring avenues with it, so, and you totally make that judgment. And I think if you're excited enough to be in the room and your rent's getting paid.
Yeah, because my experience of working with producers, it is exactly as you say there. With the exception of Phil, they're always the ones to take the hit. No, I'm kidding, Phil.
What are you saying, Paddy?
But you guys are like the biggest music fans of all, and so when you get excited about something, you're the ones kind of going, oh, I really want to make this work, and you guys, your budget is a bit like, but I'm going to find a way.
Yeah.
Is that a bit like, I know you do it because you love it, but like there are times you're like, Jesus, there must be a better job out there for me. Phil, does it get frustrating?
I think everyone in music, like if we calculated the hours we do, we'd be McDonald's millionaires, that kind of way. If there was an hourly thing, but we're trying to follow our passion and do something we love. So you kind of can't piss or moan about it in a sense, or else you just get angry and annoyed. You kind of have to just go, working in music, this is pretty cool. I'm working in synth lines in the morning. It's not too bad, that kind of way. So you kind of have to take certain hits that way financially, and the time and age that we're in, we'll probably get more into the business of it, but that's 2017. Music isn't like, well, the industry isn't like, or we're told it's not like back in the days when CDs were 20 euros a pop, and so they could spend a fortune in studios, because nowadays the economy of studios is, an artist doesn't make money instantly from what they put into a studio. So even if they're signed with a label, there's not enough of an incentive to pay good money for the studio side of it, because there's no kickback straight away, as opposed to a live gig where they could be getting a big fee, and the live engineer has to be paid that day, because there's a money exchange that's going on.
Right.
So in the economics of finance of a business, the studio is kind of the last thing that's thought of, because no one knows when it recoups, or if it does, or if it makes money. So it's kind of left kind of lingering, the kind of way on the business side of it. I don't know where your question was. I just went on a tangent.
I was looking at Cian there. I was like, Jesus, he's just set up like his own recording studio.
What were you saying? Hold on. What was your question?
Well, it's a fair. Well, it was actually about finance.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're kind of gone there with Cian. Like, I mean,
I suppose my experience kind of, and particularly recently, and because I've set up the studio, and it's a business as well, and I have to think about it like that, and I've got the producer hat and everything else. But I would have always, I think the planning, the budgeting, scheduling part of being a producer is a huge part of it as well, and being upfront at the start, because a lot of people might come have no idea what it costs to record 4 songs or an album, or 2 songs or whatever, and they may not know the difference between getting a 12-piece string section in or some guy playing it on the keyboard, but they might want everything, but not have a budget to pay for it. So doing the budget at the start, and knowing exactly, for me anyway, knowing exactly how long it's going to take to maybe arrange the strings, how long the rhythm section are going to come in and have to record for, because they're all going to have to get paid, the studio's going to have to pay it, and just be able to schedule it and say, look, in 5 days we're going to have this done for you, and it's going to cost this much. Is that okay? Or is that what you're thinking, or is that way above or way below? And if it's below and you want strings, well, we can do that as well, and we can do this. Having said that, at the end of all that, you do end up probably going way above and beyond what you wanted, because you get emotionally invested in it. You want to do a good job. You are a musician and are enjoying the process, But I think that part of it is kind of important, certainly for me anyway, and probably because I have the studio head on me as well. But that planning budget and being upfront, because it just leads to tears at the end if it's not mentioned at the start, you know.
Do you, and like just out of interest, are you guys, I presume you'd have to get something up front, like from a business point of view, like?
It depends for me anyway. If it's someone you might be working with quite a lot, you know, there's a trust there anyway, it's fine. If it's a very quick job, 1 or 2 days, it's probably fine. You know, if someone books in 5 weeks at a studio and they're coming from the States and you've never met them before, in that situation, you have to, because you could get a call the day before and it's gone and you've got 5 weeks empty in the studio and you've booked musicians and all that. So it really depends for me anyway.
Yeah, I think that's just experience that teaches you that. It's that exact thing happened to me in my first or second year of recording, and they were good friends of mine, but then they started having label difficulties and it all unraveled, and I was left with a empty summer, but with overheads. I think it's a continuation, or it's another avenue of the communication thing for me, and like you say, it's like straight away have that conversation, and not when you're standing in the studio with everybody with their guitars on. You know, get it sorted. And for me, you know, the bands that I work with, they see the investment of time and energy, and 99% of the time they give it back in terms of being fair with payment. Once in a while somebody will get into trouble, and then you just figure that out again. I think I found there's been very few, you know, I don't think anyone who's malicious or wants to like make a few pounds would be in a band recording anyway, so everybody treats everybody relatively fairly.
It's like naivety, though, isn't it? Like, and people are are enthusiastic about making a piece of music, and then it can get out of hand.
Yeah, and I think that is definitely part of your role, is making sure that is kept in order, that you don't. And that's something I try to do a lot. You know, if it's a brand new artist and it's their first EP, I don't want them to spend like $2 or $3 grand making 4 songs that they're going to be done with in like 3 months anyway, but it doesn't make sense. And I try to have which again ties into going to see them in their environment and seeing where they're at as a band. I usually would ask, if I don't know the band, you know, I'll just ask them why do you want that? You know, are you trying to get played on radio? Do you need to play shows? Or is this the best song in the world? You know, those sorts of motivations, and then you get where their expectation levels, and then that's where you realistically find the budget. And sometimes it's just not with you. Can
I just ask you a question there? Because it's one that, as a musician recording an EP, I've been there, done that, and have made many mistakes and recorded stuff that, you know, just over 15 years in the industry, like, you know, Jesus, I shouldn't have maybe spent that much. Phil, I swear to God, I'm not talking about you.
It's not me.
I just want you to know, all right? But is there, like you mentioned there, a number? Is there a benchmark where you're coming in, your first EP, because I see this myself as well, like working in Joe, a lot of bands would come to you and go, what do you think we should do? We don't, like, we're at home, we're recording stuff onto a phone. We'd actually like to just go to the next level, maybe go into a studio. Because do you know what? The best part of that is that's an experience as well. Like, and that's like an awesome time to be had. And you meet people like these guys, and it's like you open doors. And so there's part of a process too. But do you have a kind of a number? Like, you've kind of mentioned one there, Rocky. I'll start with yourself.
Oh no, a number. I have loads of different numbers. I could tell you. But I think you know, I don't know what I want to get into here. Is that an unfair question? No, of course I have a number, because like you were saying, you in your head, when someone makes an inquiry, you budget it out. Well, we need this room, we need this many people, you know, so it just, that tells you the number. The number goes from down here to up there.
But sure, like even need, like is it 2 songs? Is it 4 songs? Right. Is it 1 song? Like, and well, even like that informs the number. Like an example
of a band that I've worked with recently is a band from Derry called Touts, who are like, they're like school kids. They're a punk band. They came down on a Sunday because their parents wouldn't let them record any other time. We did like 2 songs in like maybe 3 hours. They've got a record deal, they've got a management deal, they've got a booking agent. I think they've got lots of other stuff on the go, all off the back of like 250 quid for like, you know, a couple hours to record. And then I mixed it and bounced it to tape that afternoon, and it's out. You know, it doesn't take thousands to make things happen. It just takes a good representation of that song. They're a punk band, so of course you look at how punk's recorded. It's mostly live in one small room with very little effects. If they were, you know, I don't know, Rihanna or Justin Timberlake or something, we're probably not going to be able to do that in 2 hours for £250, you know. So I think
you wouldn't have tuned the drums in that time. I thought.
I think we wouldn't be using drums, would we? But you know, I think you have to. It's that thing of expectations and what is it that you want to get from it, and that should really be the guiding thing. I think one mistake that I see quite a lot is probably just too much too soon. So you know, we have £250, we want to make an album, and it's like, probably won't make it very well. Plus, is anybody ready to hear it? You know, whereas one song is good enough at that point for the first track, for those first radio plays, first sets of gigs around the country. You know, right at that early stage.
I'll ask a slightly different one to you, Cian. Like, should they be coming to you for their first recording, or like should they be kind of just maybe holding off and maybe going somewhere, meet a friend that can record something in a room for them or something like that?
You know, it just totally depends. You know, if it's their first single and they're a great band, you know, absolutely. You know, you're not going to discriminate anyway. But you know, I think you know, it's a hard question really. If someone is coming, you know, to do, say they want to do an EP or something like that, and you clearly see that they're trying to say, let's, you know, do an EP in half a day or a day, we've no budget. They shouldn't be coming to me. You know, they probably should maybe do a little bit more work at home first or something, and then maybe a lot of the time I'll say, you know, maybe. And you know, maybe look at one song.
One song, okay,
you know?
yeah.
So the question first would be, do you want to go on radio? Is that what you're trying to do?
That's your first question, is it?
It would be. You know, it's like, what's the purpose of this?
Yeah.
Is it for your own purpose? Is it to try and get gigs? Is it to put up on your website so you've kind of an example of what you're doing? Or, you know, are you at a stage where you want to, you know, you want a song for radio or a couple of songs for radio? You know, and then the next question is, do you have to make 4 songs? Would you prefer let's just look at one and get that done, you know? But I don't know, it totally depends. Of course they should come to me, but maybe they should go to someone else, I don't know.
Yeah,
you know,
get a credit union loan maybe.
I might be the wrong producer for them anyway.
I funded my first EP anyway. Plug to the credit unions, fair play to them, very low interest rate. Now I'm encouraging irresponsible lending or borrowing or what. Anyway, Phil, I digress.
Yes. Again, it's kind of genre defined. Like as Rocky was saying, like you can have a cool young punk band in, and it's all about just capturing. But then you could have people want uber commercial pop music, which is a bit more carving has to go into it. So it depends again. Like going back almost to the previous question, as producer and finances. With a producer, your role isn't just to be the creative entity with the band trying to help the music. Your job is also to deliver a product, and that also goes into the budgeting of it and what the band want. So you need to know, first of all, where's this music going? What do they want to do with it? Do they just want to have, you know, warts and all captured live recording, kind of just to put out into the ether and see what happens, or are they going to focus this on Spotify playlists, and where do they want to go with this? Because it is, once you turn off the music side of it, it is a product that you're creating. So you need to know what shelf that's going on in the Tesco world of music analogies, you know. So that goes into the budgets as well. Like I often do an awful lot of singles, and I might just do 2 solid days of capturing the recording with the band, and then more kind of post-production on my own, and then mixing. So it could be 5-6 days working on one song, but then you hope that one song will kind of get a lot of life for 8-9 months, get great radio play, get great playlisting, be kind of out there doing the business, doing good work for the band while the band are able to write more and come back and record. You know, so it depends on what the song is, you know, so it's ever changing.
It's funny you sorry, yeah. None of you actually corrected me there either, so it's a test. You all failed. Is that about right?
No, it's a dynamic microphone, so within an inch there,
a bit more
proximity effect. There.
I was just as a prop. Just is that you haven't mentioned radio, okay, but the other 2 guys have, and I think that's a reflection of the circles and your genres and the stuff that you're doing. So I think so much the attention spans have changed. the way people consume music has changed so drastically. Like, how have you changed the way you think about music or what you record? I'll come to you in a second, but because you mentioned radio so often, well, twice or three times, Cian. Right. Are you telling people different things now, and how have you changed your own attitude towards music, and because people want radio play, but actually then they actually want a Spotify playlist, and they want people to consume it and share it online, and social media plays such a massive role in that.
Well, I think the question, what do you want to do with your music, becomes kind of more pertinent there, because you don't want to, I don't want to really spend a couple of days working with someone if I think there's going to be no end result for them, and they'll just be unhappy at the end of the process. I mean, even if we create something that's very, very good, but they don't have a plan for it. They're not planning for it to be on radio. They're not planning to go out touring it or playing with a band, or yet they just have this aspiration of maybe I'll just be a big star somehow, but I've actually got no plan in place for it. I don't really want to necessarily get involved in that kind of so in terms of what I take on or the kind of questions I ask before, for me it's very important anyway. Do they have a plan? Do they know? Do they have next steps and all that kind of stuff? Sometimes we'll help them through that, but that's very important. In terms of how I actually make music now, I think that's probably changed a lot since I've taken over the studio, because I was doing a lot of stuff from but kind of sophisticated home studio setup, and just being not having various separate live rooms and big control room. I would have done a lot of tracking and overdubbing and that kind of thing to create the end result. I think for me now, I love just capturing that bottled magic in a room with musicians, really good musicians, where it just happens and you capture the moment. So for me, actually making music the process has become a lot quicker now. I think getting a more or less the song 70% of the way very, very quickly, and then doing whatever overdubs required later. But certainly I prefer working that way now. I don't know if that answers your question or if that was even the question, but it's the question I've decided to answer.
Cian, you're absolutely right to do that. It's learned it from Leo Varadkar and the politicians that matter. I don't care what he asks. This is the question.
I'm just going to answer my question.
No, it's valid. No, I mean, I think because like what Cian's alluded to there, Phil, then is that 70% of of the work of the work that's done. Well, I'll refer you back to the original question, which is about, have you changed the way you think about me? You're 10 years in the game now. You started off, and Codeline has been with you along the way, so that's actually kind of an interesting thread. Like, has that changed at any stage? I mean, they got bigger, obviously. So
how I've changed, is it?
And how you record music and how you think about music.
Well, it's developed. I think it's the same as being a musician. You pick up different things, you formulate different ideas, you learn from experience, but hopefully you're still going with your gut. That's the thing. You're still going with your spidey sense when you hear a great song. But yeah, things change all the time. And even when you're doing heavily commercial music is a fashion. So there's fashion trends, sonic trends that change year on year, that sometimes you might dip into it or fight, because I love radio. I love radio and I love pop music. So I want to get as many songs on radio as possible, really, So for me, it's just trying to engage with as much of a fan base for the band as possible, and just trying to get as much kind of out there, But you constantly change, but you still love the same music you love, and it's still the same things that kind of get you excited,
And Rocky, it's a little bit different for you because you're not thinking in terms of radio. 90, is there anything really you've done that's like you're thinking that's a radio song?
Here and there, but I think when it's a radio song, you're thinking that when it's not a radio, if it's a band that it's not suiting for radio, but all of a sudden, and I've had that situation where it's like, oh, we better have it like this because, then it'll get on Radio 1. It's like changing that part, this part's not going to get that on. It's like I think I just try to get people It's like, what does this song need to be the song that it should be? That's sort of the thing. I think it's a different thing. You know, I've certainly done projects which have ended up with lots of radio play. I almost was going to say it's almost better for me when that happens, when it just happens, you know. But of course, you're lining it up to happen a little bit. But I think that has to be somewhat organic and natural in a sense, because if someone brings a song to you and it's like a 2.5 minute pop tune,
that's it,
it's easy. If you've got like a 2-piece band with a guitar tuned down to C, and no repeating melody. I've just done an album like that last week. It's amazing, like one of the best albums I've ever worked on. But no one in that room was thinking Radio 1 Daytime is going to happen. It's just not even on the agenda. And if it is, I think again the expectations are a little bit warped. So. In terms of, I kind of get in your question in terms of like, have things changed or things different? I kind of feel like, having hated Spotify for a long time and then realizing that that's not the fault of Spotify or the users, it's actually for me improving things in that we now don't, and I'm a little bit different because based in Belfast, everything that we're getting hit with is Radio 1, it's BBC, it's introducing, it's everything there. And I know there can be a strange divide sometimes between bands who can, I've played support shows with bands like Bell X1 in Dublin, and Dublin compared to Belfast, it's just, the change is ridiculous in terms of like listenership and size. So one positive I think that is now in place, and this isn't really to do with production, but it's about consumption, is that I think people can enjoy musicians a little bit more now than, it's not that small playlist that's getting hit everywhere.
Right.
Organically things can come up, although I don't know how organic it is, but in terms of there is a greater way of finding music now, and it's more people to people, it's sharing.
Yeah, and it's global.
Songs that you like. What's that?
It's global, like, I
yeah,
mean.
Exactly. So there's a song that can just pop out of like wherever, like a village in the middle of the States, and the next day it can just be everywhere. I think that's really exciting. I think there's more freedom now than there maybe was 10 years ago when I first started, in terms of like it was the chase for Radio 1, it was that chase, and that's still there to some degree, but I think having worked a little bit in that and looked at it, the area that I've decided to go into just deals with that a little bit less.
I know it's interesting, like, and don't want to labour on radio but it is it's like kind of the other side of the coin often for a lot of the artists that you two guys definitely work with, and to a lesser extent Rocky, but like Spotify is interesting because even there's an artist there, a guy called Dermot Kennedy. He's a great artist. He doesn't get played in the radio at all, even though his music, you could argue, has radio potential. The guy has 6 million streams on Spotify, and I just saw that the other day and I was like, fucking hell, like his PR, his profile in Ireland does not match that at all. And I think you're seeing that time and again, these artists that are popping up globally, something has happened for them. And it's happened almost without them having to go to Germany and play like 300 gigs or whatever the marketplace, that's just they find a niche, which must be a great opportunity. And finally on radio, because I worked in radio for a long time, I wondered, do you actually, you talked about Bleed American, right? And that album has so many great radio singles. Like the middle is 2 minutes and 45 seconds or thereabouts. Something Good Can Work by Two Door Cinema Club got played off the radio because it's 2 minutes and 12 seconds long. And if you're a DJ and you need to fit one more song in, you've played 10 songs an hour, you actually want to play 11. That's the song that you put in at the end. Same for 9 in the Afternoon, or whatever the hell that's called, by Panic at the Disco, which is 1 minute and 58 seconds. Song 2, like, I can round them off because there's only about 10 that are like that length. So like, I would say to anyone, if you've got a really good song, knock a verse and chorus off it, bring it to 2 minutes, and you're probably going to have a really good chance to get played the radio. But are you ever thinking that cynically?
Well, cynically? Did you say cynically?
Yeah.
Never cynically. I was in an indie pop band.
I thought you were going to hit him there.
Maybe. I just missed. I just wasn't sure.
His name's Rocky.
His name is Rocky. Yeah, you're right.
I was in an indie band like 10 years ago, and we only had one song that was over 3 minutes. You know, every song was like 2 1/4 to 2 3/4 minutes. It wasn't cynical, but it was by design. It was, right, we've played the intro, it's time to play the verse. Do we need 3 verses? No, we definitely don't, because we're not really saying that much anyway lyrically. Therefore, the story doesn't need to unfold. It's like, you know, and that definitely has kind of followed through in my style of writing, which I still do. So, you know, it's more about, but that's more about interest for me. It's like with a pop song, I don't know, I kind of can't go like 4.5 minutes or wait for like 1.5 minutes to get to the chorus. It's that you want that chorus.
What about the key
you.
change and the rise? You don't get off the stools, man. You can't. You gotta have that.
I don't know. I think, but I think if you cynically try to write that, like what I'm saying, if you're, I think if you're a band who don't write songs like that, and all of a sudden, although it can be, you can unlock. I think as long as it's coming from a good place.
I think cynical is the wrong word.
I think it's one of the jobs, isn't it? When you get a demo or a kind of well-formed demo, but it might be 4.5 minutes long, and you just know it's not going to get ready to play, and also you're listening to it, and there is a lot of repetition, which doesn't necessarily need to be there. One of the first jobs on it is the editing, editing of that down and broaching it in a diplomatic manner. Going, do you absolutely need this bit, and perhaps if we cut that little section and got rid of the instrumental or whatever it is. And it's definitely not from a cynical place, but it's you're trying to be helpful and try to get their goals realized, but after this conversation, I'm knocking at least a minute off all my past productions.
There you go, man. I'm telling you, it's a gateway. It's a gateway. Yeah. United States of whatever, that's like 57 seconds or whatever the hell it is. Right. Look at the amount of airplay that's got. Fuck all. But anyway.
Likewise what Rocky and Keane were saying, you're trying to serve the song. So it's not about making it shorter for radio. It's making sure the flow is right, the energy is right, that you don't get bored, because especially if it's a rock song or a pop song, it should be full of angst or fun or whatever the energy is, but it just shouldn't linger on unless that's the energy or the vibe of that song. So I never cut for radio. It just so happens the structures of those, they're going to be pop songs. They have that. They're built into our brain. Like the single was kind of invented because of shellacs and 7-inch records, because you could only fit 2 minutes 45 seconds. So we have this kind of emotional muscle memory for a structure of a pop song within us. It's like movies. Like I think a lot of people hate the way movies aren't an hour and a half anymore, that they're 4 hours. We're getting a bit itchy now, watching these superhero movies over 2 hours. We have these kind of preset emotional muscle memories, so we kind of know what's right for a pop song.
I like looking at these guys' resumes, like insane the amount of bands you've worked with, but from on the other side, the apprenticeships that you've served with like great producers, like which is key to every, it's key to every producer is like the people you've worked with. What's the best advice you've been given that you could pass on to these lovely people, from a production point of view, like?
And you know what? I don't even know what production means. It's getting on with people and musicians and trying to pull the most out of them. So it's trying to eliminate any fear of intimidation or any kind of sense of difference. So you just want to be able them to be completely open, so you can just capture the music. Because you're going to put the music on a CD or an MP3, it's going to last forever. So you don't want to hear fear or any kind of wall of, difference between you. So it's not about the technical recording. It's not, I don't even know what the word production means. It's just capturing what you think is best for the song. So I don't know. It's one of those things. There's technically better producers and engineers out there than all the best producers in the world, but it's about just getting along with musicians and pulling the song out of them, getting them to go that extra mile to perform. Because at the end of the day, if you're in a recording studio, it can be quite a clinical place for a singer to be stuck in like a cupboard, and they're singing a song about something that means so much to them. And then all of a sudden, in their headphones, they're like, "Yeah, go on, verse 1, sing," and you're like, "Oh." So you don't want that. You whatever's best for the musician. So even this week, I did all the vocals in the control booth with no headphones, just turned up the speakers, let the singer walk around with a microphone, because it felt good. There's spill. It's not a technically good recording, but the vibe is brilliant. So you don't care, So it's just about capturing. Don't worry about technicalities. Don't worry about any of that nonsense. It's just capture.
But that's your job, I suppose, though, isn't it? Like to worry about the technicalities.
It is. And you know what? Like, I'm a bit I'm probably a bit flippant in saying that, because again, that's kind of muscle memory. Because for years I would have been an engineer for like 10 years before I called myself a producer. I was always producing. It took me a long time before I called myself a producer. So I would have learned all that. I would have been setting up tape machines. I would have been learning acoustics. Would have been learning phase. I would have been, I know all my SSLs and Neves and Amex and APIs inside out. So now that's kind of a muscle memory. I don't really think about it. I just know instantly, if I'm recording a kick drum, I just know what mic to grab. And I don't question it. I just do it because I know what kind of sound I'm going for. So the rest is just led up to the psychology of working with the musician and just having that kind of connection. So I shouldn't have said don't forget about the recording. Yeah, it's good to have that background, but it's more about just capturing the music, full stop.
I suppose as a musician or the artist, whatever, you don't really want. It's all about the performance anyway. So you just want that to be captured, and you don't really want the producer talking about the million mics that they've put there to capture your amazing performance. But actually, it's really about how amazing that producer is. Like I've seen Phil do the most amazing array of mics that have captured an amazing drum sound and never, mention it. It just happens. It's just there. It's really quick. It's organic. He knows exactly what's going on. The drummer, the artist, all they do is just sit down and play, and that's the focus. But a lot of the times, I think certainly, not mentioning any names or even thinking about anyone, but that kind of. The old days where you had the producer, the George Martin, and you had the engineer in the white coat, and the engineer was the one that moved all the mics and the producer didn't move the mics. Now the producer is also the guy in the white coat, and it's been happening for a long time, but I think it's better when the producer doesn't talk like the guy in the white coat sometimes, to the artist.
Yeah, because generally that's really boring. Obviously there's a sick obsession where you spend thousands of hours figuring all those things out, learning about them. It's something I teach to any assistants I have in the studio. It's like, unless someone from the band starts talking technical details to you, please do not mention anything that we're doing, because the band are coming in to capture themselves in the studio. They probably just want to get breakfast and like riff on guitar. They don't want to know why you're setting up like 4 snare drum mics. But if they ask, you can absolutely tell them. And quite a lot of musicians, I don't know exactly where you guys started, but musicians will drift from being a musician to being producers, and there is sometimes that first person that starts them off, and I've got a couple of friends who have done that. They've been in bands and worked with producers on albums for long times, and then they've drifted through and they can cite real influences and helpful people, and I try to do that, but only if they're interested. I think it isn't while I say it isn't about that, I think you were saying the same thing. You were just covering yourself. Like, it doesn't matter if there's a bit of spill from the vocal, but obviously if you get a mix that comes to you and there's so much spill that you can't get the vocal out, you're going to be really unhappy. You're buffering it
internally, but you're just trying to capture it. Like, even again on a big enough album, I did the vocals outside in a garden with a PA out the window because it was a sunny day, and the song was about a sunny day. It was like flicking stones, kind of like, so get out there, sing, and it sounded great, and no one cares. Yeah. No one knows,
Yeah, I think just back to advice. When I was in the band self-producing the albums, there's a DJ composer from Belfast called David Holmes who has done lots of soundtracks. Just happened. He just seemed to appear at every point of my career that I needed advice or was struggling, usually in a bar, and he would just. This one time, we were kind of like getting to the guts of the album. It was finishing with the label we were signed to. And we were kind of starting to stress on a couple of factors, and he just said, close the studio door and make the album that you want to make. And when you think it's ready, open the door and come out. And that was in terms of like outside fears creeping into the process. And that's something that stuck with me pretty much. That was like 12, 13 years ago. That stuck with me the whole time. It's be fearless. Don't be stupid, but be fearless. Don't, genuinely, I had a band once, who were trying to cut an intro because it was like, do you think Cian Lowe would play this on the radio? And it's like, if that truly is the factor that's creeping into what you're writing, don't, you're just destroyed. You're second guessing yourself. So that stuck with me at every point. And one other wider advice was that American hip hop band, Ugly Duckling. I had toured with them as a kind of front of house tour manager when I was very young. And the advice that he had given me was, if you're not enjoying this, don't do it. Just like, get out of the way and let someone else do it, because there are so many people who want to be doing the thing that you're doing. So if you're not loving it, change.
That must be odd, though, to even see that up close. You must have seen it too, like when people are like,
I'm
here, but I don't really want to be here.
God,
like even one member of the band that could bring the whole...
Someone was asking me about it the other night. We did like this live video performance of a doom metal band from Belfast called Slowmatics, who are like kind of like a worldwide cult doom band, as big as that can ever be. But it was a small show with like 30 super fans, and one of them was a journalist friend of mine. He was asking about like that kind of like, you know, do you still like music? And it was like, of course I like music. Like, do you think I would be here on a Friday night at 11 o'clock sober when you're all drunk, picking up your beer, you know, if I didn't love this? And I think that's the thing. I started as like a live sound engineer, so I worked in venues and did tours when I was like 16 to 20, I think. And that's like probably the first place you meet grumpy people in the music business. It's like the angry old sound man who has forgotten that he's, you know, actually mixing music that people are paying to come and see, that it's not just like a pair of speakers with random things between them. And that's something that aged 19, I sensed it was starting to happen to me, because one side of the PA was broken in the Belfast venue, and every time I turned the vocal up loud enough, it switched off, and I was just like, I'm out of here. You know, that advice just came into my head. It was like, change. And that's where I drifted towards the studio, because it wasn't just a moment that could go right or wrong, that didn't always have a consequence. It was something that would last forever, that you had more control over.
Is there any front of house sound engineers here, by the way? Let's fucking trash them then. They're so grumpy. They're so, and now we know why they're so angry.
Well, I think that's it. I think I've seen that. That's been like one of the biggest changes I've seen in recent years. Is they're all super professional, happy, organized young men.
It's a different world now.
Women now, you know, it's
What's
like
happened?
it is so different. I thought it's a digital desk. The old guys can work them. And they're all out of a job. I don't know.
Oh,
They're going to come and get me, aren't they?
disruptive technology once again. I want Uber for sound desks. Okay, so I want to get people asking questions, because I've probably asked enough questions. But before I do, just some very quick rapid fire questions just across the panel that are just, yeah, they're short answers. What's your most precious studio tool and why? Philip?
My sanity.
Sanity.
Yeah, no, patience. Piece of equipment.
Yeah, it's a gear related question.
It's all. Sorry, I'm not going quick fire. Go.
But I bought an old SSL not that long ago, and I mix everything on it. That was a huge step for me from not mixing my own projects to mixing them. So that
what type?
It's a 4000 G series.
You get that on Dundee or something like
I had
that?
to buy it off some. It was a disaster. It took like 3 months to arrive. It cost. It was just horrendous.
Larkin.
What's no, it was I can't remember, Peter Duncan, maybe a guy,
Okay,
you know, Peter Duncan, and then it came with the engineer who used to build them for SSL, who's in his mid-70s, had to drive over with it, and it just like it you can't switch it off, because you've switched it off and on, and it'll break, so it's been switched on. So right now I'm worried that the studio's on fire. It's like I wake up every night, but it sounds really good.
You literally cannot switch it off.
Well, you can, but you shouldn't.
It's not good.
Okay.
Turn them off. Yeah.
Really?
You don't
Is
want
that
to shock the capacitors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that really the best thing? But it had a massive. It did have a massive.
Because the desk is so important,
change.
isn't it? Like
Yeah, and before that, I tended not to mix albums. You know, I would send them to other people. I just felt like I couldn't quite, especially rock records. I felt like I couldn't get them there in terms of intensity and volume that I needed to.
Okay.
I can tell you a piece of equipment now.
Go on, Philip.
Because we're talking about kind of recording in control rooms. It's an SM7B. It's a microphone. It's like an SM58. It's like that microphone. It's pretty much the exact same, but it's got such great rejection that it doesn't pick up much sound around it.
Okay.
So it means you don't need vocal boots, or you can.
And it's a vocal mic?
It's a mic. It was made for It was made for radio. It was made for Paddy McCanna.
There you
go. But
old guy.
it started getting used in rock vocals in the 90s a lot. But it's just great because, you know, with a condenser microphone, it picks up every nuance in the room, every air, every low end. So if you wanted to redo a line of that vocal, you can never redo it because the room be a different temperature. Everything just feel different. But with this mic, you just shove it in front of their mouth and sing, you know, and it sounds the same each time.
Is that the mic you do when you go outside in the sunshine to sing?
It's because if you're doing an album for continuity, and I did it with an album recently, and some of the vocals were recorded in hotel bedrooms, on tour buses, in nice studios, everywhere, and it's just a £250, 300 euro microphone, but I use it on loads of albums. It's a cheap mic.
Can I just say, like, one of the instruments in the studio rather than the gear?
Yeah.
I kind of like all the gear. The gear is fine as long as it works and it sounds good. I'm fine, and I'm not really too fussy about which we go in. It's all for me. Just does it sound good? Fine. Yeah. I just got a new whirly, which is an old kind of red top whirly from I won't say the year because it's the same year as I was born. It's very old. Anyway,
what year
I've
is
been
it?
looking what?
What year
71.
is it?
Oh, Phil, nicely done, sir.
But I've been looking one for ages, and I just got it. It's just lovely. It's all shiny and red. So that's probably my favourite one at the moment. And my piano. The piano's fun.
Keena's probably the best piano in Ireland or Europe. It's
a nice one.
It's a stunning full Steinway grand. It's unreal.
Wow. And this is the Whirly has replaced the Steinway now, has
just
it?
at the moment.
Okay.
You have your favourites just at the
Jesus.
moment. No, I still like the Steinway.
What a father you are. Yeah, you used to be my favourite, but no longer.
I just said I love the gear all equally, and I didn't say that about my instruments. Oh, well.
Is there a plug-in? I know this is a bit geary and nerdy, but like I'm just conscious there are producers in the room. I'd like to give them something, I just want to...
Plug-in. I love the Waves H delay. It's very musical.
Yeah.
Because I have a little controller, so I set up the feedback, the modulation, the high pass, low pass. So while people are doing tracks, I'm able to automate it and wiggle it. It's very musical.
Okay.
So I like that.
I kind of like Altiverb as a kind of general all-round do-gooder, particularly on kind of strings and acoustic kind of things. Just I like Sydney Opera House. Just put the strings in there and nice. And it always just sounds better. Yeah.
Then you don't have to go there. You
don't
can
have to
it.
go there and record
Brilliant.
with Phil's van.
Rocky.
I really like all the sound toy stuff. I tend to use that a lot if I'm in plugins. If I'm not using I tend to use like crap broken old stuff like tape echoes and stuff. But another one is the Valhalla, like vintage their reverb stuff. They're like $50, super cheap, really cool sounding, interesting, and so cheap.
Okay, like that. What is the studio's most underrated instrument? I've said cowbell, by the way. You said cowbell? Okay.
Underrated instrument in a studio.
Yeah, like I think everyone's looking for like what can we bring in that's not a guitar or a piano or
nothing's like everything's up. That's the great thing about a studio. It's a little Boffin's layer of messing, so everything's up for grabs. You can bring in a melodica and put it through an old live reverb and a Behringer compressor, and you're like, that's mad.
If somebody comes in with a harp, are you going like, would you fuck off?
No, like put it through an amp and let's go mad. That's what a studio is. There's nothing untapped, and if it is untapped, get it out of the studio. It shouldn't be there. Like everything should be plugged in and be able to be reached within a millisecond of an idea. That's something really important in a studio. There's no point having all this equipment, all these little lights flashing around. So just hop on it.
Yeah, and I was going to say the melodica, but I've been trying to fit the melodica into a song for the last 3 years, and just no one's been taking it. It hasn't ended.
Melodica solo. That's what you want.
I've tried.
I don't know. I guess for me it's the tambourine. You just can't beat the old tambourine. Just stick one in there. It sounds like a song.
Yeah.
Would you?
Yeah, I 100% agree.
Would you record live tambourine, or would you just, especially if it's like 64s or something like that?
It depends on the tune. Depends if it's like super exact and we've click tracked everything and it's all like super on and we're running out of time or patience, I'll probably just program stuff. But otherwise I would tend to like 3-story stairwell. I'll just go out there and let percussion happen, whether that's hand claps or tambourines, and just a mic upstairs.
Are you putting
downstairs.
Tambourine on like for a little flavour on maybe every snare or every...
You can do that. 16ths, I'm a big fan of the 16ths, or maybe it's just quarters. It's nice and swingy, accents on things. And then from that you can pitch shift and reverse, and you can start to really do things.
And you get to have the conversation with the drummer. And which tambourine do you prefer? And
Yeah, of course. Yeah. You've got,
and they all sound the same pretty much, maybe apart from the wooden one, which is nice.
Yeah, I've got 8 tambos at the moment, and I love tambourine. Addicted to tambourine.
And I think it's something sometimes, especially with rock bands that I would work with, would be like, oh, we're not using that, and then you just play them some of their favorite albums, and you're just like, it's there, and you haven't even heard that it's there, but it's having such an impact on how you feel. Can't believe I went for the tambourine.
You produce post-rock records and you went for the tambourine. Why didn't you go for the kazoo? I would ask you as well. I've asked you about plugins. I've asked you about studio tools. Like, this is a kind of one you might have an answer for, but I'll ask you this. What's the one studio trick that you don't tell anybody about, but you're going to tell us here this evening?
See, that's all gone. See, the problem, not the problem.
There must be a few tricks now. Come on, Phil.
But the good thing is, like, there was probably tricks in the 80s because no one had home studios.
Right, okay.
You know, nowadays people are coming in and they're so well educated. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but you have people in and they know the difference between like an orange top SSL EQ and a brown top, and, you know, from just their home plugins and stuff. So they kind of know a lot. And then YouTube, there's an awful lot of resources out there. So, you know, I don't know what tricks are. Like, but actually, like, a lot of things I do now.
I think you have them, but you don't even know you're doing them.
Yeah, like there's old school things I love doing. I love changing with the playback speed of the song, which is an old thing, like with tape, vary speed. So it was used traditionally for, like, if someone had a cowbell and it was hang, 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 but the song is kind of ha, ha. You know, you could change the speed of the tape so the tambourine became in tune, or the cowbell became in tune. So you can do that, but you can do that in a much more creative way. You can slow down the tape machine by completely half and then record a guitar on top of it. But it means the guitarist has to play twice as long but at the same speed, and then when they play it back it sounds like this crazy magical kind of stars falling kind of sound, you know. But it's more organic and it sounds great. So there's things like that. Is
that on Codeline Records? Have I heard that sound that you've just described?
Quite a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, a wee bit on guitars and shimmers and stuff like that. And I've done it recently with a band came in. And I always ask, especially new bands, I go, what else do you do? Do you know, like, people have secret tricks that they don't tell you as the musicians. And the drummer was a great saxophone player, but they didn't want any saxophone on their indie cool music, you know, and I loved the cheesy sax. So I got him to just wail all over the track, but have the track at half speed. So when you play it back, it was up an octave and kind of chipmunky, but it was going through loads of guitar amps and room sounds and delays. And it just made this like, that's amazing, you know. But it was placed organically, you know, like it was a musician being great. So when it comes back, you're getting this cool sense of something, you know. And you don't know what it is, you know.
Did it make the mix?
It's the hook of the song. There. Like there's one of the hooks is in there. Yeah.
Same question.
For me, it's probably going back to that. It's mic techniques. It's the numbers and the physics of stuff. That's like the stuff that I just don't talk about. And it's probably only a secret for me because we don't talk about it. You know, is
it because it's boring or because we wouldn't understand?
It's because I don't want it to be the focus of the day. It's not boring. It's very interesting. But again, you need to realize that it's not. It's the mechanism that sometimes makes the amazing thing come across. That's all it is. So, you know, the ways on my guitar amps or whatever it is, you know, I wouldn't tend to talk about that, but it's not particularly because it's a secret. It's because it
sounds like a secret.
I want to know
what do you do.
I don't know. I just like, I don't know. You know where you would like. It's something that I've done forever, where you would mic on and off axis on the same speaker with two dynamic mics. That seems to, like, bands don't seem to. They just come in and go, "What are you doing that for?" And I was just like, "Sounds great," you know. But it's like I'm not going to be like, "Listen to the guitar sound when I add this second channel." I'm just going to throw up the guitar and say, "Do you like this? Will we go for a take?" But as you say, everything else, everybody knows everything.
Yeah. Okay, that must be really annoying. Like people coming in and like showing off.
Yeah, I think you can. Again, I just don't like it when it steers the direction of the day away from what it actually is. But I think knowledge is a good thing.
Hey, Cian, give us some recording hacks, man.
No, I don't really have any that anybody doesn't know really about. I mean, I might trick people into thinking they're not doing a take and record them and that kind of thing, just so because you can kind of tell they're tensing up every time you press the red button. But you know, in terms of mic techniques, maybe, you know, with a very dynamic vocal or something, using a couple of very different mics to capture, you know, if they're peaking on the one mic that you really want to use for most of the stuff, you know, you're capturing it on the 7B or something like that Phil was talking about. And that comes into play a lot of times because some you know, vocalists might say specifically no compression going in on the vocal. Some people are, you know, will have that kind of thing. So then but they've got an incredibly, or their producer might say that, it mightn't be me producing, and yeah, you're left with a vocal that will will peak at times unless you kind of do something about it. So that kind of thing, maybe 3 different mics, different distances, and that kind of thing. It's not a really trick that probably nobody doesn't know already, but there you go. I didn't know that.
I didn't know it anyway. So, but I'm not a music producer, so it just would make sense. Absolutely brilliant. I found so much interesting stuff there, but I'd love to hear your questions as well. So if anybody has a question on any topic, this man's going to get the ball rolling.
Big question. If you're producing your own stuff, do you mix it as well? Or do you outsource your mixing? Good idea, bad idea?
Are you a brilliant mixer?
No.
Do we? I thought it was you doing your own stuff.
Your experience, good idea or bad idea?
Good question.
It changes. Sometimes you're so connected to the recording that you're like, I need to mix this because no one else is going to get why that tambourine was so important. You know, and then other times it's good to get another professional just to send it out. You know, so switches around. I'd mix most stuff I do just because I'm so hands-on and I'm like, oh, I really want to mix this. But then it's brilliant as well. It's a relief when you send it to someone else and you don't have to mix it. It's lovely because mixing is like, can be torture at times. You're like, oh, I'm the worst in the world. I can't even make a kick drum sound like a kick. This is just, why am I doing this, you know? And then you send it off to someone else and you're like, that sounds great, you know? But then other times you love it, so it kind of comes and goes because mixing is a funny old art form.
I love kind of sending my stuff off for someone else to mix because I said it's a kind of headache that somebody else has to look after. But a lot of the stuff I'd be involved in, I might be the arranger as well, and it might be, you know, stuff where it is like strings and woodwinds and brass or something like that, or, you know, just strings on top of a rock band. And in some of those kind of situations, I know maybe that if I send it off, I'm not going to get what I'm looking for as an arranger. So I might even just do a stem mix on the strings and then get someone else to mix the rhythm section and sit the vocal and all that kind of stuff. So it really depends on the kind of music. As Phil said, sometimes you get really attached to it and you think, I'm the only one that's really going to be able to mix this. And then other times it's just someone else is going to do a better job. You know, I'm too close to it.
I think that thing you said, your stem mixes, if I'm working on something and I know I'm not mixing it, I'll get things to a different point. You know, maybe if I'm producing and recording it and I'm mixing it, we're kind of halfway through a process, there'll be stuff I'll be like, I can do that in my mix prep, whereas if someone else is mixing, it is as close to the way I want it to sound when it goes to them, so that if anything they bring to it is more than that. They're not going to spend time fixing anything or sorting things out. It's going to be
that's a huge
perfect.
Thing. Yeah, because if I send a mix to someone else, I pretty much mix the song.
Yeah.
Because you want it.
You'd be too embarrassed to send it to them
anyway. Yeah, you want it sounding amazing onto the mix engineer, and then for him to advance in that, you don't want to
beat that.
Yeah, no, it's not even to beat it. It's just because he's going to bring us somewhere else. Plus, when you're mixing it yourself, I see you're the same. When you're in the recording session, you're having loads of fun, and you don't tie up all the loose ends. You go, well, I'm going to be mixing that, so I'm going to spend an extra few days tying the loose ends. But when you're sending it to someone, you're going back in and you're prepping it, which is pretty much mixing it. So even I've just finished an album recently and I haven't mixed it, and they all went to Spike Stent, who's probably one of the biggest mix engineers in the world. So like if you're sending something to him, you're like, I want Spike to love this. You know, the kind of way you're prepping the hell out of it, and then he expands on it. You're like, oh wow.
And also, great. He's not going to want it unless
he won't accept it. Nor would we. You know, like when someone sends you a mix to like a song to mix, it needs to be pretty final, because your job as a mix engineer, which we do as well, is just to mix pretty much, unless you want you to be kind of additional production. So everything needs to come kind of tight, locked in, named, consolidated, you know, because you don't want to be sitting there.
It never does though, does it?
It's bloody better.
I think it's that. It's I don't know. I think if someone else is getting involved in the process, you just behave even more responsibly, probably.
Money comes down to two. I remember being given advice once, which was like, spend half the money in production and half the money on the mix.
Was that the mix engineer?
It was the mix engineer. His name was P. Magee. I don't want to give away his name.
It's so tough. Like I've been getting mixes back every day now. I've been getting revisions of this album I've just finished, and sometimes you go, I love it, and then other times you're like, oh, I hate it. You're so emotionally attached to it. You're like, oh, where's that cool thing I did in the snare, you know. But then you have to kind of go, you're too close to it. You're going with this other person who has a vision as well. So you're stepping back and trying to kind of wipe the slate clear because you've seen all the warts and all. So you're trying to go, why does he do that? And just step back and listen to it with a new hat and fresh ears. So yeah, it can be tough hearing a mix that you haven't done as well. But then you just kind of collaborate, and they're usually right. These are brilliant mix engineers.
Because they can be just looking for a different thing. They can be just thinking frequencies and energy and that kind of thing. Whereas, you know, and hook, you know, whereas the hook can, hook. But it's a lot about, you know, just that it's just missing something a bit warm, or it's just too muddy here. Let's get rid of that. But
they come out with no baggage, though. Sure they don't. There's no politics. There's nothing there. It's just a very objective opinion about what the way the song should sound.
Just mixing, and they're mixing every day. You know, they're not. You know, a lot of those guys. That's what they're doing. They're getting stems pretty much mixed, and they're making it better. And they've no emotional investment.
Can I ask?
Oh yes, you can indeed.
You're talking a lot about the mixing. What about the mastering? Do you actually do your own mastering? Because I feel that sometimes it's the mastering that really puts the polish on it.
Yeah, myself personally, I don't master because I love sending that to someone else. But I'm very hands-on. And I use one mastering guy in London. It took me years to figure out what kind of mastering engineer I liked and suss it all out, you know, because there's so much. No, it's a chap called Simon Francis, and he does good stuff to my mixes, you know, and it's just lovely having someone else do, like, I call it like the grading, you know, like the colouring in, and it's so important, you know, because there's so many people out there mastering, because it's such easy service to get in contact with now, because you're only sending one stereo file, so it's quite easy to do mastering anywhere. So it's all done online now. You don't go into mastering houses anymore. I used to go to London all the time and sit in mastering sessions and then get the CD, come home, listen to it, and then go, oh, could you boost the top end, you know? Where now I've got a great relationship with this chap. He masters it, sounds brilliant. He'll send it to me before the artist, because he might accentuate the high end, because overall the tone might need to be a tiny bit brighter, but then I mightn't like what it does to a sibilant frequency in a vocal or a hi-hat, and I'll do some pre-emphasis. I'll go tweak it again. So it's really important. For me, it's really important as a producer to keep an eye on the mastering, because it's the final stage of that product being released. I know some people go, it's a different entity. I've done my job. I don't care. But for me, I need to be on top of that to see what's going on. What's he doing?
I think that's the point for me often, where it comes undone. You've done loads of work into something and you get the masters back and you're really disappointed. Yeah. So similarly, I have a couple of people that there's, like, my favorite person is a guy called Robin Schmidt, who's a German mastering engineer at 2496.
He's brilliant. Yeah.
First album I sent to him on recommendation, I thought it was too dark, actually, because I'd been referencing it against something very trebly. And I got him to do a second pass and a third pass, and then a week later I went back to the first pass, and that's the only revisions he's ever done for me, and that was 7 years ago. It's first master, perfect. He gets what it is. It's, I don't know, it just seems like he gets my mixes, he gets them, and he makes them better. Yeah. So I think when you get a relationship like that, don't mess with it. You know, it's kind of, I will only master tracks when the budget is non-existent and it has to go out. And for me personally, it's a torture, because you're finding that point where you're ruining your track, and then you stop just there, whereas
and then because technically you've mixed in one room, and then you're going to be mastering the same room if it's you, so it's not going to be the most perfect subjective piece of audio.
And I think that's somewhere where, you know, that being one step outside and being emotionless really comes into play. You know, I think I kind of want my mix engineer to have emotion, but mastering guy, I just want him to get it right and to save me as well when I've made mistakes, which has happened once. He's probably blaming me.
I was just going to ask you guys, just when it comes to mastering, if your person, you have someone you trust does all your mastering, would you trust them when they came back to you and said the mix was shit or not your best?
Oh yeah, like
when do your ears switch off?
I had other mastering engineers in the past, and some very good ones, and sometimes there wouldn't be much dialogue. They just go, "Great mix." I'm like, "All right," you know, like it's like, "Come on, give me some feedback." So when I found this guy, because he did some mastering for me, and all of a sudden went, "Oh, this sounds like my mix, but just a bit better. I like this." You know, like, I'm going with you. You're making me look good. So I was completely open with him, and I said, "Look, if you're accentuating, if there's the low mids, like certain frequencies that you're boosting lots of, and it's making other things not sound good, talk to me. Like, we're online, I can go turn down some 200 hertz in a bass and send it back to you, And it's happened. Now, I send them, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 mixes a month or something like that. And it happens maybe 2-3 times a year where he's like, it's a bit bright up in this. And I'm like, oh, cool. So so you're kind of, there's no ego, because at the end of the day, you just want it to sound good,
If he gives you no feedback, you take for granted that he's happy with the mix to master that.
No, he'll always be overall happy with the mix, but he'll just, when he homes in, he'll find little trouble spots. But that's only happened a few times, but you just trust him. And if he says something to you, you're not going to be upset. So it's a real open relationship. He's can be completely honest with you. And vice versa. I'll get back to him and go, it's a bit boomy, my car's rattling. I played in my sister's micro and it's shaking. What's going on? And he go, yeah, sorry, I over-egged it. I was feeling it, like sort it out, So it's good.
This man, and I'll come to you next, man, just one, please. Yes.
Just a question. If you had somebody coming with, say it's a raw song, you have a production, you've got to kind of set the tempo, it's going to be a certain beat. Have you found that as the thing evolves, the production develops, towards the end you say, it's a bit fast. Is that a problem? Is that something you found that even, I find sometimes the time of day, you kind of listen to the thing at night time versus the morning.
Yeah.
And your judgment on the actual tempo, you've got a different kind of perspective. I don't know if you find that.
It's certainly happened.
It does happen.
Certainly happened. I think
the oh shit moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is a bit boring.
I think it's like the pre-production. It's the planning of that. If you do get it in its rawest form, maybe just live with it for a little while. Try it a few different ways. I think that's one thing that most of what I do is like before it gets to a computer. It happens. The recording is captured through various boxes, noise boxes. I mean, it's like the sounds are made and captured. But for certain types of projects that are really open like that, I have just got more into using Logic or whatever, and where you can just like sweep things up and down. So you kind of have a better idea. No, I don't think I've been in that situation where someone comes in on morning one and we're stuck to it on day one, if you know what I mean. So we try to just preempt that a little bit. But yeah, it
happened to me last week.
Did it happen very late at night when someone said, "Do you think it's just too fast?"
It was day 2. We'd like the whole song pretty much captured and it was swinging, and we're like, it's just a little too slow. Just like you weren't dancing, your hips weren't shaking.
Yeah.
They were shaking a little bit, but they weren't shaking fully. So obviously, if you change the tempo digitally, you're degrading the audio. So as the audio engineer, if you're like, "Whoa, no trouble, horrible, don't be changing it. Everything's going to go wishy-washy." But the groove needs to be right.
Would you ever go to your vari speed then?
Yeah.
Use the vari speed. Yeah. Well, you can't. Well, to go technically, you can't because vari speed is controlled with pitch and time. So
Take it up like a quarter tone.
you can. Yeah, I would. Yeah, no.
Well, the vocals would probably sound like
It would all change, but nowadays it's with computers. It's great because obviously you can bring up the tempo while we're keeping the reference tone, keeping the pitch. So you can do that. You're going to degrade audio a wee bit, but in saying that, without getting too techie, you just want to serve the song. So you go, okay. Hopefully there's some MIDI in there that you can re-trigger through your boxes, and so you kind of it does happen. It's seldom though. Like Rocky was saying, I go into rehearsals for a very long time, pre-production. So you've kind of nailed it. It only ever happens in like maybe once a year, and you change it.
I thought it would have kind of like a Eurovision song or something, and the artist is happy. It's a big production. You spend days with everybody, and then you send it to the TV company, and they send it to someone else, and then it comes back. It's just a tiny bit slow, and you're like, okay. And there's no possible way you can do anything. But about 1 or 2 BPM, you could nudge it up without changing the pitch. Going up in speed is easier than going down in speed. Once you go down, you're going to degrade. But going up in speed is possible. So it is possible to kind of just use a bit of waves or something and nudge everything up. Done that.
Is there a process in terms of get all the rhythm and stuff in there first, or something that gives it that you get the vibe?
Yeah, I mean
when you put the stuff
Yeah, I think it's really like the pre-production thing. If that's just sitting down at the piano with the artist and just playing it over until you know it really feels good at that tempo. You know, knowing your tempos as well, writing down what the BPM is on the chart, and then you know when you get the rhythm section in. So you know I had this at 112 or something like that. Let's play it at that. Then maybe it just feels a little bit slower or faster. You know, nudge it. And general consensus, you know, is when you've arrived at the right tempo. Usually it's okay, and it's an experience thing, and like knowing, you know, at the end of a long day, not to get too excited and everything isn't too slow because you were doing it earlier and it was sounding great when you're doing it earlier. So chances are it's probably okay and it's probably you know. But it does happen sometimes, you know. It's a dangerous thing.
This man here?
Oh yeah, I just want to ask, in terms of sending recording off for mastering, it's important to keep the levels down and they don't go into the red anywhere.
I mean, don't they say 6 dB?
How techie are we going to go here? It actually doesn't really bloody matter nowadays because of the resolution. You're sending over a file that's 24 bits. It's probably 44.1 kilohertz or 48 kilohertz. So there's a huge amount of information. There's so much ones and zeros there that the mastering engineer can bring it into a system and just turn it down. Really, what's more important is
16-bit, is that okay?
Well, if you've recorded it in 16-bit, you're going to have to send it in 16-bit. It's nowadays the standard is to record in 24-bit, 44.1, 48. But the volume of it used to be a big thing because it would obviously go into a lot more analog equipment, so you didn't want to hit in the hard. But now they can just pull it back. What's more important is how dynamic you want to keep your mix, as in how quiet the soft parts are and how loud the loud parts are. Because you want it to have good dynamics, so the mastering engineer can play with that. Where you don't want to do is have loads of processing on your master bus compressors and limiters where it's just brick walled, as they say. And you've got no essence of a journey in a song unless it's a EDM dance song. So you want to keep your mix dynamic and fluid and chilled out and let the mastering engineer control a bit more, to give him a bit of wiggle room. But the overall volume doesn't matter. It used to be under 6 dB, but I don't think it matters.
Yeah, it's similarly, I think Robin had said to me that he can handle stuff at +2 these days, so it doesn't, you know, I'll never get to that point anyway. No. My process is, for mixing, is recording my master channel of my desk, which comes in at like -8 or whatever. But I think what's more important is if you're mixing in the box, that you're not having to turn your master fader down. Is that how you're working? Are you working?
It's all individual tracks and then the master.
There's a master channel. You know, so you can be overloading that. So if you find like your master's down at like -15 to 20 and you're bringing that down, it still sounds crap.
No.
You just don't see the crap.
Yeah, you shouldn't let that go into the red at all. You should let... Once it's not in the red, it's okay, but so it's always safe to have a kind of -6 just for your own world, so nothing's ever crushing it, because you get... It's still not good.
It's not great.
Yeah, because...
No.
Not really. Like, there is safeguards now in most software where they have these kind of... It's not really the red anymore and all this kind of stuff.
But similarly, I'd have your master fader at 0 all the time. So you're not, when you turn up your vocal, that's not going into your master channel in the red, and you're just turning it down after the fact. Because I got into that about 10 years ago, a big argument with someone, and we looked at it, and I was turning down my master fader and going, no, it's fine, it's not in the red anymore, but it still was getting annihilated on the internal mix bus. But as these guys say, technology has marched on now to the point where that's not the issue that it was back then. But it's just good practice, and I think then you would hear where people say, oh, you should record it, is it -18 or something you should hit on your input? Yeah, that's about just good management of gain structure, so that you've got the room to work on your fader, so that everything's not back at -35 and you've got no movement. It's more about your mix structure, but yeah, certainly.
And then so on the kind of master bus, you can put a kind of little gentle limiting or something. If you're sending a reference mix off to someone and you don't want it to sound weedy, it's very common practice to do a bit of kind of a gentle limiting. So you're kind of mastering, but not fully kind of mastering. But then when you're bouncing your mix down for the mastering engineer, you're taking that off. So, and you're not mixing with that on all the time either.
Yeah, certainly.
Are we more confused? it's
okay.
Don't let it go into the red.
Yeah.
No
red.
Red is bad.
Such
I've
techie.
got
It's
that.
the win so techie, like.
Red is... Someone.
And if you do it sort of the latter way, I suppose, how do you try to kind of capture that still, that kind of vibe, or just natural feeling when it's probably an unnatural way for a lot of musicians.
So it's like overdub after overdub after overdub after overdub. Some bands just don't necessarily have the chops to do the whole. We're going to play it live and organic, doesn't it come down to that? Like some bands just have to record each individual part.
I think it's probably genre or style. You know, just how you want it to come across. If you want it to be like perfect, right on. I'll just talk about rock music. This is what I know more about. You know, if you want everything to be precise, then yeah, you're working out click tempo maps, you're doing everything, you're making sure it's all perfect. And I've done quite a lot of that as well, like more of the kind of hi-fi, bigger hitting rock stuff. The thing that you're looking for is that the intensity's not dropping at any point. So I almost feel like sometimes when you're doing that stuff and you're being more exact, it gives you a little bit more freedom to be heavier because everything is so on to get that energy and excitement back in. There's more layers of guitars, there's more distortion, whereas a band live in the room, there's less overdubs because it's more about playing together, and it's actually more difficult if you've done a bunch of live stuff and you're trying to get them to play that again when no one's there. I do both happily and often. You know, I think the past year I've probably done more get the core of the thing down, and that gives you the energy. So the drums and the bass and the rhythm guitars are live, and they're pushing and they're pulling. I did something that noisy, unrepetitive, like band there, that 2-piece, just the weirdest time changes and the oddest stuff. And they're two brothers. They've been playing together since they were 7, and the minute we tried to put them on a click track or do anything like that, it started sounding like this crazy prog rock band, and it was just so wrong for what it was. So I would usually let that guide me in terms of when you're doing stuff. But I think I don't think necessarily that just doing overdubs can take the life out of something. But there's definitely things you have to do to try and bring it back in. I didn't answer anything.
The rhythm section, though, you know, if you can get that bed down, you know, and preferably if you have the benefit of having, you know, a guitarist with them or keys or the two of them, and they may not end up being the final product, you know, but the bass and the drums. So people know what they're doing.
I think that's a great point. Every time I've ever done click tracks and metronomes and overdubbed everything, the entire band has played the guide track. They're in the control room with me. Everybody's playing their parts. And that also helps us in terms of tempo. Like you're hearing, does the vocal work, does the thing. I think maybe you sometimes work where you bring people in separately. Do you bring in rhythm sections? So you might not have that luxury sometimes?
Well, no, not anymore, really, to be honest with you. It's always, not all the time, but pretty much all the time it's live. But I have worked in the past where I'm bringing a drummer in and the drummer is playing to a click track, and then the bass player is coming in the next day and this guitar is coming in, and everything has been layered. And I'm actually trying to create, I've done it for albums, but I've also done it for live shows where the shows aren't actually live, but there's a band on stage pretending to be live. And I've recorded that kind of ironically in that fashion, drums playing to a click and then to bass. But in that situation, how you get that illusion is by, the arrangement, by pretty much being all in my head in advance, all charted out. So then the bass player is playing notes. It works with the drum pattern that I've written. The guitar parts all written. But if you're kind of just going in and trying to get an effect like that, and you don't really know what you're looking for, or the musicians don't know what you're looking for, it's never going to sound right,
Yeah, I think if you're recording, as you're saying, there's two different ways, kind of live or kind of modular, and you're worried that the kind of broken up style modular recording doesn't feel good or doesn't have the live guts, that shouldn't be the case. If you're doing kind of modular recording where you're just recording a loop and a guitar, the most important thing is that every element swings. That's because it can get very stiff and stale if it doesn't, because instantly you get a vibe with humans in a room when you're recording. So if you're doing it on your own and building it up, it's just important that every ingredient feels really cool on its own. And that's something that took me a good while to kind of figure out. You'd be putting in a drum loop and then a bass, but if you listen to the bass on its own, you can't dance to it again or swing to it. Every element just needs to swing on its own entity, and it'll all work together. It really will. And then I do the same as Rocky. Every band that I get in, I have them completely live, even though it might turn into like a big pop commercial entity. But I need to hear that instant record straight away. So I'll have them all in the control room, drummer in the live room, just do it. And then if you've got exceptional musicians, I did a single recently for CC Brez in this fella's studio, and the musicians were just unreal. So we put down the whole thing live, but it's a pop song. Because they were so good, it was like James Brown band, you know, like everyone sounded like a loop. They all sounded like samples. The whole thing was just unbelievable. Like the drummer, every time he hit the snare, it sounded the exact same every time. Same with the bassist, the consistency, the musicianship, and that was just phenomenal. I didn't know what to do because I was like, this is it, it's sounding good. So we went and had dinner. I was like, this is great. I wish this was the Stax label, and you know, Booker T and the MG. Oh yeah, definitely. They're like, it was Hosier's drummer, and it was like just the top. It was Jake Curran on guitar, CC Brez himself, an amazing guitarist, and just phenomenal players. And you're like, I wish this was every day.
Deadly.
Yeah.
Any more questions? We'll do two more. So.
Yeah, I'd just like to hear your opinion on the role of technology now in the music industry. Obviously, the past 20 years has changed an awful lot with the growth of the internet, and now you've got streaming sites, etc. So it's kind of a bit of a double-barreled question. On one hand, I want to know how it's affected the studio and how you work now today, as opposed to when you kind of started, I suppose, to term yourselves as producers. And on the other hand, I want to know, Rocky actually mentioned earlier you hate Spotify.
I used to, I'm better now.
Yeah, I kind of want to know how the likes of streaming sites come into your work nowadays, and if that's something that you aim for, because obviously there's such a broad market that you can reach on Spotify and Apple Music with tailored playlists and curated playlists.
I think I've made it like a kind of purposeful decision in the past kind of year and a half to kind of not focus on that stuff just quite as much when I'm making the things. There's other people around who are thinking about that stuff. I think I try to just see it through with if it's an album or a single, that the song is the thing. Obviously, I don't know, I just find it so silly to say that, you know, well, we want this to be really popular on Spotify, then make sure it's amazing, that's going to do it. You know, that does it. It definitely has a bit of a reckoning on mixes. I mean, just today, for example, I was mixing a track that's super dynamic, starts with like just whispers of stuff. It's like a 6-minute tune with a vocal that goes the whole way through, and it gets extremely loud at the end. Incredibly political. The vocal is so important. And I was kind of having back and forth with the guy in the band today about how he was like, oh, you know, this bit needs to come up and this needs to come up. And I was like, no, it still needs to be dynamic, but we still need to hear it. So if you play it out of your laptop or your phone or whatever, that the point of the song is coming across. So technology in terms of like how people consume music has probably had an impact on the other side for technology. Things are just way better now. It's like, you know, I don't have 25 crashes a day. It doesn't take a year to burn a DVD backup of one of the songs on the album. Everything is amazing in that regard. It's just brilliant.
You hear some people like say that, you know, the internet and technology killed the music industry, and like for legacy people, you know.
It changed the industry. Like it changed it. Like as I was saying, like the labels and big management years ago were pulling in tons of money for a little piece of plastic, you know, and it probably wasn't right. Where like there was a lot more money in recording studios, producers would have got more, engineers would have got more. There was a big structure, but recording wasn't available to people. You know, when they had to do demos in the late 70s, 80s, they'd save up for a couple of grand to do demos. You know, where now the great thing about technology is everybody can do it on an iPhone using GarageBand. So it's really made music more, you know, I was going to say democratic, that's not the right word, kind of just open, you know, to everybody to create music that sounds good, using the same technology as the studios. So the studios are in trouble. Like you go into a big studio and you're able just to do it yourself. So you're kind of looking after you're looking for the expertise of an engineer or a producer when you go to that next step. So technology has been brilliant, I think, in that way. It's opened up as a level playing field. And the same with distribution and consumption. When you put, like years ago, if you wanted to get a CD into HMV, you'd have to go through, labels and everything and distributors, and you wouldn't get a poster in the shop, you wouldn't get a cardboard frame. But now if you put your stuff up on Spotify or Apple Music, you still have the same artwork size as Beyonce, and you still have the same, like there's no difference, they can't trump you in a sense, apart from pop-up ads, so I like that in a sense.
Yeah, it's very equitable, all right. I never thought of it that way. That's a really good point.
Pardon?
You look as good as them.
Who? Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think you meant I look as good as Beyonce.
Yeah, I think you do.
Well, thank you.
We're going to have one more question because we do have to leave shortly. This man, I did see you first. Go for it.
A question in regards to the elements of the song. So like a lot of songs you hear that like the last couple of years on radio, very like small amount of elements in them. Like you hear songs that only have kind of 2 or 3 things going on, but it still sound huge. It still sound really big. How do you get that big sound from a small amount of elements, and how do you get that big amount of space in a mix?
Go back to Beyonce now, Will, with this one. Like if you listen to like a song like Halo, it's just like a drum machine and a pad and a voice. Because there's such little going on, you're able to turn up that kick super loud, you can turn up that synth and the vocal. So instantly it's bigger than having a song crammed with loads of instruments and eating up every sonic spectrum that you have to you. So it's been brave, you know what it is? It's like when you hear these, especially the hip-hop producers, they're so brave, and it means the stuff sounds louder. They can just really, really push it, because when we're mixing, we were talking about mastering stuff, the more elements you have, they're going to get more compressed and sucked. So if you can be just brave and get rid of as many elements that are just not needed. So if the song is about a vocal, try and just listen. Even when you're mixing, I try and just mix the vocal first. Then I might bring in a kick drum and then a melodic instrument, let it be the piano or whatever's going on. Then you might have another 50 instruments that you recorded, but if you just leave it at that and be brave, that can be very cool. Tough decision to make, but that's how they make them so big. It's just about being super, super brave. And also, it's about the performance of the vocal usually in those really spatial songs, because something needs to carry the weight, because it's very easy to hide elements with lots of sound, so...
I was going to say, I think that's it. You can't, if you've got 4 things in your mix, every single one of them has to be amazing, because there's no hiding. It has to be right there, and those 4 things, or less sometimes, have to hold your attention.
I was going to say, in arranging, there's a rule of 3, as in the human brain can only actually really process about 3 different ideas at one time. Even if you've got a full orchestra, actually, if you look at it down, the strings are the same as the flutes or whatever. There's only, usually in good range, there's only 3 ideas going on. Any more than that, and it just can't process, and you get overload. And if you're looking at a pop song, you've already got the vocal doing one thing, and kind of leaves 2 other things. Even listen back. I kind of mentioned Quincy Jones. Listening back to Thriller, there's actually very few ideas going on at the exact same time, but it sounds huge, and it's diverse because lots of new ideas come in. But, I think we're saying it's the exact same thing. You've got kind of 3, 4 really good ideas. Just make them prominent, and draw the ear to them.
I've got a song that I'm working on there now at the minute, and I've got about 8 or 9 different sounds playing the same thing to try and get like a real big sound out of it.
That's one idea, yeah. So that's good. Yeah. It's just you're creating a different tone, timbre, yeah.
Like when I have 3 or 4 different bass tracks with different tones and stuff to give it like different layers. And you'll have like pianos playing the same thing and then the synth playing the same thing. Just have one idea of what I'm real big like.
Yeah, that's good, I think.
So what you should do even for your head is get those, if all those kicks are doing the same thing, stem them into one entity. If all those keyboards are doing the same melody, get them into one have as little control as possible. For mixing, throw away any options are horrible. I hate options. It's commit. which is a pure Beatles thing. So, and if you made a mistake in the commitment, it's done. Who cares? You know, the kind of way. It's only bothering you. Just have as
except you can always go back.
You can, yeah, in the back of your head you can, but no. But even with like you've got a beautiful SSL desk, so when you're recording, it's great just to, if you've got 8 microphones on an amp, it's great just to sum it into one input.
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
And then all in your little recording session, like if you're recording a rock band, you just want to see like 8 tracks, and you're like, that's winning. I love that. And it's commitment.
It's great advice. I think we leave it there. It's absolutely brilliant. So one more time for Rocky, for Cian, and for Phil.
Thank you.
Great advice. And thanks to you for coming out. Keep an eye on IMRO. You get your emails anyway, and we'll see you back here again very, very soon.